Welcome to that big WTF moment in the sky known as the Oddity Archive, now filmed in glorious Scotchgard of vision.
If you want to know the kind of topics that keep me awake at night, and why wouldn't you? You ever wonder why there were never any politically conservative folk singers? I mean, there's plenty out there for everybody to bitch about. Well, as it turns out, there were a small handful during the folk and folk rock boom of the mid-1960s. It's just that there was this slight lack of commercial achievement. So just to get it out of the way, let's look at our first and only successful conservative folkie, and I use the term folkie loosely. I'm talking about Army Staff Sergeant Barry Sadler. Barry Sadler was a Vietnam vet who decided to begin honing his songwriting craft in the hospital after being hit in the leg with a feces-covered punji stick, sharpened bamboo. Sadler swore that if he ever fully recovered, he'd give away the rights to his newly written song, The Ballad of the Green Berets. True to his word, he did, and it became the biggest hit of 1966. No! Anyway, when I said that I only loosely considered Sadler to be a folk singer, I mean that his songs tend to structurally follow in the folk song tradition. Lots of verse, verse, verse type song structures and not a whole lot of pop structure. His arrangements, conversely, were mostly very middle-of-the-road, bland, mid-60s, easy-listening fluff. It's really easy, way too easy to put down an album like Ballads of the Green Berets. The songs really aren't very good, and Sadler's overly straight, sober readings of these tunes just wear down on you after a few songs. The title cut is truly the standout. It's the only song on the record that dares to make a significant musical statement and also benefits from the rather lean arrangement, bringing Sadler's lyrics to the fore.
Trained to live off nature's land, trained in combat, hand to hand, men who fight by night and day, courage take from a green beret.
Criticism aside, the album actually feels very earnest. It doesn't sound like he's trying to cash in on patriotic sentiment, and you get the feeling that it was all pretty heartfelt, so I've got to respect him for that. Unsurprisingly, Sadler's musical career went downhill as fast as the disapproval numbers for the Vietnam War went up. Alright, I lied. This next artist was also successful. It's just that this particular album was one of the most spectacular commercial failures of its time. He'd already written hits for artists such as The Searchers, he was quite famous as one half of Sonny and Cher, and he notched a top 10 hit of his own with the tune Laugh at Me, a loud and proud proclamation of his own geekdom. I'm talking about Sonny Bono.
I never thought I'd cut a record by myself, but I got something I want to say. I want to say it for Cher, and I hope I say it for a lot of people. Why can't I be like any guy? Why do they try to make me run? Son of a... So I don't care. Then laugh at me if that's not fair. I have to pay to be free. Then baby, laugh at me.
I have nothing but respect for this guy. In my book, somebody like Buddy Holly was only a geek by facade, whereas Sonny was the real deal. He made it okay for weird, dorky guys to break into rock and roll, paving the way for subsequent generations of geek rockers. In 1967, apparently inspired by the likes of Bob Dylan and probably feeling just a little bit cocky after 4 years of straight successes, Sonny made his first full, and as it would turn out, only solo album, a brilliantly warped folk rock disc called Inner Views, in which Sonny openly retaliates against the more liberal-leaning tendencies of the music world, going off on rants about infidelity, stretches of awkward social commentary, and limp sermons on seemingly simple issues like recreational drug use. He was against it, though you'd never know it by listening to this album. Unsurprisingly, the album was a resounding failure, missing the charts completely. The main problem with Interviews was I don't think Sonny knew how screwed up it was. I mean, this album really does feel like a genuine, if misguided, reach for hipster cred. There's only 5 songs on this album, most notably Pammy's on a Bummer, which seems to unintentionally mirror the Velvet Underground's noise jams of that time. But the album's centerpiece has to be I Just Sit There, a way overzealous, nearly 13-minute stab at abstract Dylan-esque storytelling. Here's a few lines. Ring around the rosy. Your daddy's getting nosy. Your mother's cooking sturgeon. Your sister's still a virgin. To be honest, I'm still not sure if this song's lyrics are some of the worst or best in the history of popular music. And if that's not enough Dylanisms for you, Sonny one-ups Bob with a pair of harmonica solos so screeching and atonal they make Bob seem like John Popper.
Yeah! All right, let me try. Cooking sturgeon.
Let's mellow out a little now. Next up, we've got Janet Green. Prior to her music career, Janet Green had played Cinderella on a pair of Columbus, Ohio kiddie TV shows. First on a show called The Uncle Al Show. She was fired from that show following a refusal to, how can I put this, attend a business function on the station manager's casting couch. The second turn as Cinderella was for her own children's show on a competing Columbus station, lasting for 3 years. Apparently it wasn't station politics or any kind of personal or professional disenchantment that led to Green pulling the plug on her own show, but the charisma of one Dr. Frederick C. Schwartz, a fierce anti-communist lecturer and founder of the CACC, or the Christian Anti-Communism Crusade. Dr. Schwartz felt that if the political right had their own token stereotypical folk singer a la Joan Baez, the conservatives could fight fire with fire, so to speak. Green's big debut came in front of a crowd of at least 2 people at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles in October of 1964. Since Joan Baez was best known as a recording artist, it seemed only logical that Janet Green should launch her own recording career. Supposedly wanting to keep her artistic integrity and stuff, or more than likely unable to land a record deal, it took until 1966 for Green to launch her recording career. It just took Dr. Schwartz himself to launch his own label, Shantico Records, to get things going. Green's extensive recording career consisted of 8 songs released on 4 45s. With titles like Commie Lies, Poor Left Winger, and Fascist Threat, it's just amazing that she couldn't seem to score a hit.
You will join the Republican Party. Never.
Oh, tough guy, are you?
Bill, play the record. No, not the record. No.
I've heard it said, and it makes me fret. America has a fascist threat. Which organization can it be? This is what perplexes me.
In 1965, the terminally constipated-sounding Barry McGuire put out a dire little ditty called Eve of Destruction, which, in spite of its title and subject matter, became a #1 hit. Later in the year, a group called The Spokesman put out a pointless, lyrically unfocused response record called Dawn of Correction. Why? Vocalist John Madara even does a half-assed impression of Barry Maguire throughout the song. And don't think he's just hamming it up for this one song. He sounds like this through the entire LP. And did I mention there's this jaw harp twanging away in the background for the entire song too? Again, why? Somehow the single weaseled its way into the lower rungs of the top 40, peaking at number 36.
So over and over again, you keep saying it's the end. But I say you're wrong, we're just on the dawn of correction.
There's one verse to this song that really crawls up my ass. There are buttons to push in two mighty nations, but who's crazy enough to risk annihilation? The buttons are there to ensure negotiation, so don't be afraid, boy, it's our only salvation. Call me naive.
You're naive.
Call me a bleeding heart.
You bleeding heart, pinko commie bastard!
Thank you. But for a song that is meant to be comforting, I don't find this comforting at all. Two major nations with nukes aimed at each other just doesn't sound like a good thing to me. Since we're already in the land of bad taste, let's look at our final group, a seriously short-lived and supposedly satirical folk group called the Goldwaters. Believe me when I say that the sweaters that they're wearing on their album cover is the only clever thing about this group. The Goldwaters were formed for the sole purpose of helping the 1964 Barry Goldwater presidential campaign. As you can see, it worked perfectly. The Goldwaters' sole LP, 1964's The Goldwaters Sing Folk Songs to Bug the Liberals, is a borderline unlistenable batch of poor parodies of public domain folk songs and lame and at times downright nonsensical comedy routines that even Carlos Mencia wouldn't steal. This record is the longest 27 minutes in recorded history. That's right, the entire album only clocks in at 27 minutes and change and is still way too long. It's also one of the most ineptly produced records ever made. Most notably, the album is supposedly live, but when you hear the same exact laugh track over and over again, every time at a horribly inappropriate place, and the same applause soundbite, again at seemingly random places, yeah, this album was not live. Also, the songs all segue into each other with little rhyme or reason. The track listing on the LP's back cover is wrong. In fact, I'm still trying to figure out which song is which, but it's so painful to listen to this record for more than a minute or two at a shot that it could take me years to figure it out. About the only positive thing I can say about this record is that there's some pretty decent banjo picking at times, and that's about it. According to lead singer Ken Crook, the Goldwaters album supposedly sold around 200,000 copies. I doubt it. Why? Because to the best of my research, the record didn't chart, it garnered no airplay, it garnered no reviews, and it was on such a tiny label. Indeed, I can't find a non-Goldwaters release on this label. I find it hard to believe that they could press 200,000 copies of anything, let alone sell that many. Distribution on such a tiny label would have been an issue as well. And I really doubt they'd have moved that many units just at Goldwater campaign stops and various other Republican wingdings.
Way out west in Arizona, there is a man and he is gonna clean their plow in 64. He's got boats in every region.
You learn something new every day, don't you? No matter how useless. Whether or not you agree with liberal philosophy is beside the point. The reason behind a lack of prominent conservative folk singers and musicians in general is, well, an apparent lack of talent. Wish it was deeper than that. Oh well. That's it for today's Oddity Archive. Join us next time when we discuss Fidel Castro's failed gangsta rap career.
I've heard it said, and it makes me fret, America has a fascist threat. Which organization can it be? This is what perplexes me. So I I think I'll take a little quiz and find out just what fascism is.